A lie is a bridge burned before it is ever crossed, a promise shattered in the silent space between two languages. In the private Orion suite of the city's most exclusive restaurant, where billion-dollar agreements were sealed in whispers over crystal glasses and candlelight, a betrayal was unfolding, molecule by molecule. Aliyah Malik felt it in the air. She moved between tables in a crisp white shirt and black vest, invisible by design. Her presence was meant to be seamless, felt only in refilled glasses and perfectly placed plates. But she was not invisible. She was watching. Her hands were steady as she poured water into crystal glasses, but inside something trembled. For 2 years she had lived like a ghost. Since the fire that destroyed her former life, everything had been grayscale. Folded napkins, polished silverware, memorized specials. Tonight, color was bleeding back in. Sharp, dangerous. At the head of the long mahogany table sat Saeed Khan, a man whose stillness carried weight. His expression was calm, controlled, but the whiteness of his knuckles against the leather folder beside him told another story. Across from him, 2 American executives smiled with easy confidence. They believed they held the advantage. Between them sat the translator, Armand Sheikh, impeccably dressed, smooth. His voice flowed like aged whiskey. He was the bridge between 2 worlds. And Aliyah knew the bridge was compromised. The first drop of poison. Aliyah was fluent in both languages, a fact that would have stunned everyone in the room. She heard it, the subtle twist, the softening of a demand into a suggestion, the insertion of one carefully chosen adjective that shifted meaning entirely. When Saeed Khan said, his tone cold as steel, "The liability clause is non-negotiable," Armand turned smoothly to the Americans and translated, "Mr. Khan believes there may be room for flexibility in the liability structure, pending review of your proposed amendments." It was a breathtaking lie. Aliyah's hand paused for a fraction of a second over a bread basket. Armand wasn't simply mistranslating words, he was rewriting the architecture of the deal in real time, brick by treacherous brick. The Americans nodded, satisfied. They thought they were winning, taming the powerful foreign titan. They had no idea their victory was scripted. The ghost of her father. This was not her fight. Her world now was silverware and service trays. But then she heard her father's voice. Engineer Hamid Malik built bridges, literal ones. And he used to say, "A bridge with one weak joint is not a bridge. It's a beautifully engineered catastrophe." Years ago, a rival corporation falsified safety reports, condemning one of his largest municipal projects. They destroyed not just his company, but his name, his legacy, his identity. 2 years later, hollowed by disgrace, he died. And now, here in this gilded dining room, she was watching another bridge being weakened. Armand wasn't simply mistranslating words, he was rewriting the architecture of the deal in real time, brick by treacherous brick. The Americans nodded, satisfied. They thought they were winning, taming the powerful foreign titan. They had no idea their victory was scripted. The weight of silence. The hum of the air conditioning sounded louder, ominous. Silence was safety. Silence meant survival. She slipped into the service corridor, leaning against the stainless steel of the wine refrigerator. Her job was fragile. It paid for her small apartment. It kept her afloat beneath the mountain of legal debt left behind by her father's battles. Intervening meant risking everything. Best case, she'd be fired. Worst case, these were not ordinary executives.
Rumors about Saeed Khan's empire were dark and persistent, but if she stayed silent, she would become complicit. She touched the small silver locket at her neck, inside a folded scrap of drafting paper from her father's desk. This was fear versus legacy. She closed her eyes. Tonight, she would not be a ghost. She would be a bridge. The point of no return. She selected the most expensive bottle in the cellar, a rare 1982 French vintage, the perfect excuse to approach the head of the table. Her heart pounded like a trapped bird, but her hands, steady, surgical. She re-entered the Orion suite. Armand was mid-sentence, weaving another silken deception. Aliyah approached Saeed Khan's left shoulder, positioning herself carefully to shield her mouth from view. In clear English, loud enough for the others to hear, she said, "A truly exceptional vintage, sir." Then, as the deep ruby wine poured into his glass, she leaned closer and whispered in his native language, "Your translator is lying." For one searing second, their eyes locked. No shock, no confusion, only sharp, immediate comprehension. He understood. She straightened, set the bottle down with a deliberate click, bowed slightly, and walked away. She did not look back. Behind her, the gravity of the room shifted. She had lit the fuse. Now, she could only wait for the explosion.
The silence inside the Orion suite stretched like a wire pulled too tight. In the service corridor, Aliyah pressed her back against the wall. Her pulse roared in her ears. For a long, agonizing minute, there was nothing. Had he ignored her? Had she just destroyed her life for nothing? Then, the murmur of voices resumed. But something had changed. The tone. Saeed Khan's voice, when it returned, was no longer calm velvet. It was flat, hard, like ice forming over deep water. He said something short, controlled. Aliyah didn't need to hear the words to understand. He was setting the trap. The first crack. Inside the suite, Saeed allowed Armand to translate one more exchange. But now, his eyes never left the translator's face. He was studying him, watching the mechanics of the lie, collecting proof. Then, Saeed raised his hand, a simple, almost lazy gesture. The entire meeting stopped. Silence fell again, heavier this time. "Armand," Saeed said in flawless English, his accent completely gone. "Would you kindly repeat my last statement to our guests, verbatim?" It was the first shot fired. Armand's confident smile flickered, just slightly. He began to speak, but hesitated, trying to reconstruct the lie he had just delivered. Saeed did not wait. He turned directly to the two American executives. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly in their own language, "it appears there has been a significant misunderstanding, one I feel compelled to correct personally." The color drained from Armand's face. The Americans stared in stunned disbelief. The man they believed needed a translator had understood every word. Surgical destruction. What followed was not shouting, not chaos. It was far worse. Saeed calmly dismantled every mistranslation from the past hour. He repeated his original statements, clarified each clause, corrected each distortion. With every sentence, Armand seemed to shrink. His expensive suit suddenly looked too large. His posture collapsed inward. The American's expressions shifted from confidence to confusion to humiliation. The Orion suite had transformed into a courtroom, and Saeed Khan was judge, jury, and executioner. Two security guards moved silently to stand behind Armand's chair. No raised voices, no threats, just finality. The deal was dead, the betrayal exposed.
Aftermath. From the corridor, Alia finally exhaled. Her legs trembled. She had done it. The Americans were escorted out a side exit, pale, shaken, reputations bruised. Armand was taken through another door, his face blank, stunned. Whatever future he had imagined for himself ended in that room. The Orion suite fell silent. For a moment, Alia thought it was over. She returned to her duties mechanically, preparing to clock out and disappear back into the anonymity of night. Then, the restaurant manager approached her. His face was pale. "Mr. Khan wishes to see you." Her stomach dropped. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she had already stepped into the fire. She straightened her vest, smoothed her apron, walked back inside. The question. The room was empty now. Saeed Khan sat alone at the head of the table, the leather folder closed, a single glass of water before him. He gestured to the chair opposite, Armand's former seat. Alia sat, hands folded tightly in her lap. For a long moment, he simply studied her, not angrily, analytically. "You speak my language fluently." It was not a question. "Yes, sir." "And you understand the intricacies of contract law?" Again, not a question. "I used to." His eyes narrowed slightly. "A waitress does not typically possess such skills, so I will ask you directly." He leaned forward. "Who are you?" The question demanded more than her name. It demanded her truth. And for the first time in 2 years, Alia let the dam break.
For 2 years, Alia had kept her story buried. Now, sitting across from Saeed Khan in the silent Orion suite, she let it rise. "My name is Alia Malik," she began, her voice steady but heavy with memory. "Until 2 years ago, I was a senior associate at Harrington and Vale International. I specialized in international arbitration. I was on track for partnership." She paused. "I had a future." She told him about her father, engineer Hamid Malik, the bridge builder whose reputation had been destroyed by falsified reports submitted by a corporate giant called Titan Core Holdings. They hadn't just ruined his company, they erased his credibility. He fought back in court, draining his savings, his strength, his health. And when he died believing the world rewarded deceit over integrity. But that wasn't the end. It didn't stop with him, she continued. During a major arbitration case, Alia represented a mid-sized logistics company that Titan Core was attempting to acquire through aggressive pressure tactics. She had uncovered irregularities, numbers that didn't align, communications that hinted at coercion. She was getting close to something dangerous. Then, overnight, everything collapsed. Confidential client documents were found on an external server traced to her credentials. Encrypted files appeared on her work laptop. An internal IT technician testified that she had accessed restricted systems after hours. The narrative was perfect. Brilliant young lawyer, secretly leaking information. Corporate betrayal, professional misconduct. She was disbarred within months. Her name was dragged through media headlines. Her firm distanced itself. Colleagues went silent. Later, she learned the IT technician had received a large offshore transfer shortly after his testimony. By then, it was too late. "I was professionally exiled," she said quietly. "No law firm would touch me. No corporation would hire me. My father was already fighting his own battle with Titan Core's earlier sabotage. When my case broke, it broke him." She swallowed. "I took this job because I needed to disappear." Saeed Khan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back slowly. "Titan Core," he repeated, the name heavy. He studied her carefully. "They are the parent corporation of the American firm who sat at this table tonight." The air shifted. And Armand was their instrument. The pieces clicked into place. This had not been random. She had walked straight back into the same enemy. The larger war. Over the next several days, Alia lived in suspended tension. She continued her shifts at the restaurant, polished glasses, carried plates, but everything felt different. The Orion suite remained empty, a silent monument to the explosion she had triggered. Saeed Khan said nothing. No message, no call. Doubt began to grow. Had he believed her, or had he merely solved his immediate problem and discarded her? The corporate world absorbed the canceled deal without noise, no headlines, no scandal. It was as if nothing had happened. But something had. And then, one afternoon, a sleek black car pulled up outside the restaurant. A man in a perfectly tailored dark suit entered. He asked for her by name. He was not management. He was one of Saeed Khan's men. He handed her a thick sealed envelope. Mr. Khan requested this be delivered personally, and he left. The dossier. Alia locked herself in the staff break room before opening it. Inside was not a letter, it was a dossier. Dozens of pages, internal Titan Core emails, encrypted financial transfers, digital forensic reports, sworn affidavits. She read with trembling hands. Saeed Khan's team had not just investigated Arman, they had investigated her entire downfall. They located the IT technician, now living abroad, and secured a confession. They traced funds from a Titan Core shadow account to his offshore bank. They uncovered metadata proving the fabricated emails had been created on Titan Core's internal servers before being planted on her laptop. It was all there, black and white, irrefutable. Proof of her innocence. At the bottom of the stack was a single page, an address, headquarters of Khan Global Industries, and a time, tomorrow. He had not only believed her, he had vindicated her. But as she continued reading, something even darker emerged. Arman was not an isolated operative. Titan Core had a covert division dedicated to corporate sabotage. They planted compromised individuals, translators, analysts, assistants, inside negotiations worldwide. Their strategy wasn't loud destruction, it was erosion. Introduce small distortions, create mistrust, collapse deals quietly. 1,000 invisible cuts. And overseeing this division was a single executive, Marcus Torn. The same man who oversaw the sabotage of her father's company, the same man who orchestrated the case that ended her career. She hadn't been collateral damage, she had been strategically eliminated. Her ruin had been preemptive. The realization was terrifying and liberating. She was no longer just a victim, she was a witness. And now, she was armed.
The next morning, Alia stood in front of the towering glass headquarters of Khan Global Industries. For 2 years, buildings like this had felt forbidden to her, monuments to a world that had expelled her. Today, she walked toward it. The Waitress uniform was gone. In its place was a charcoal gray suit from her old life, carefully preserved in plastic, like a relic from a future she thought had been stolen. The revolving doors swallowed her reflection. The marble floors gleamed beneath her heels. An executive assistant escorted her silently to the top floor. The elevator rose smoothly, the city unfolding below like a blueprint, roads, bridges, steel lines connecting everything. Bridges. The doors opened directly into Saeed Khan's office. It was vast and minimalist, wrapped in glass, overlooking the skyline. He was not seated behind his desk. He stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. "The view from up here is different," he said without turning. "You can see how the bridges connect the city, how vulnerable they are, how much trust we place in them." He turned to face her. Titan Core, in men like Marcus Thorne, do not build, they weaken foundations. On the large conference table lay 2 identical copies of the dossier. "My legal team has reviewed the evidence. We have grounds for a full-scale corporate espionage lawsuit. Criminal charges will follow." He tapped the folder. Your testimony will be the cornerstone." The words landed heavily. This meant stepping back into the light, her name in headlines again, the same media cycle that once destroyed her. He studied her expression. "I am not offering you a reward," he said quietly. "I am offering you a position." Her breath caught. "My head of international negotiations retired last month. The division is vulnerable. I need someone who understands not only how to build agreements, but how to recognize termites inside the structure." His gaze sharpened. "I need someone with your skill, your integrity, someone who knows what betrayal looks like." The room felt suddenly smaller. This was more than a job. It was redemption. Or another fire. Fear and legacy. Aaliyah walked slowly toward the window, standing beside him. From here, the city pulsed with life, invisible networks of trust and commerce. For 2 years, she had haunted its edges. Now she was being invited back to its heart. Fear coiled in her stomach. She remembered the headlines, the whispers, the humiliation. Marcus Thorne was powerful. Titan Core was ruthless. This would not be easy. But she looked at the dossier again. Truth, neatly organized, documented, solid. Her father's voice echoed in memory. "The strongest structures are those that can flex without breaking." She turned to Saeed. "When I was disbarred, I felt like my voice had been stolen. The only thing I knew how to do, use language to build, became my weakness." She took a breath. "I chose to hide because I thought if I didn't move, I couldn't be broken again." Her eyes hardened with resolve. "You are not just offering me employment, you are offering me the chance to finish what my father started." A rare, small smile touched Saeed Khan's lips. "Then you accept?" For a moment, she allowed herself to feel the weight of the choice. Then she straightened. "I accept." 6 months later. The final scene was not a courtroom, not flashing cameras. It was a boardroom in Seoul, 6 months later. Aliyah Malik stood at the head of a polished conference table, dressed in a sharp navy suit. Saeed Khan and his executive team listened as she presented strategy for a major international negotiation. Her voice was confident, controlled, precise. She anticipated weaknesses before they formed. She identified hidden risks and clauses before anyone else noticed. She moved through the room not as a ghost, but as authority. When she finished, she rested her hands lightly on the table. They were steady, builder's hands. For the first time in years, the memory of her father did not feel like a burden. It felt like a foundation. She had not honored him by hiding from the world that destroyed him. She honored him by re-entering it, stronger. The strongest structures are not made of steel. They are made of courage. And she had built her bridge back.